Have you ever felt like you didn't matter? Like you were overlooked or ignored? Maybe you've even been treated that way. Years ago, I was a staff member at Calvary Temple in Irving, Texas, and I had several opportunities to interact with a well-known speaker. I picked him up at the airport and at his hotel. I took care of him when he was speaking at our church. He treated my pastor great, but he almost completely ignored me. He didn't necessarily treat me bad. He just acted like I wasn't there. It didn't really hurt my feelings. I got it. He was important, and he didn't regard me as important or able to help him in any way. Years later, 2 months after I was elected pastor, I was walking down the hall at a meeting, and I saw that same guy. And he saw me, he stopped what he was doing, and he looked at me and said, "Rod, do you remember all the good times we used to have at Calvary Temple?" I looked him in the eye, I said, "No," and I walked away. Now, I'm not proud of that response. I shouldn't have done it. I should have been gracious and kind. But I learned something. I watched to see how people treat our team. If they treat them like dirt and me like a king, I don't want them speaking to our church family. Because how you treat people you consider unimportant says a lot about your character. And if you believe the words of Jesus in Matthew 25, it means much more than that. Jesus was teaching his disciples about the end times. We pick it up verse 31. When he finally arrives, blazing in beauty and all his angels with him, the Son of Man will take his place on his glorious throne. Then all the nations will be arranged before him, and he will sort the people out much as a shepherd sorts out sheep and goats, putting sheep to his right, goats to his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Enter, you who are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation. Here's why. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was homeless. You gave me a room. I was shivering, and you gave me clothes. I was sick, and you stopped to visit. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then those sheep are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we see you hungry and feed you, thirsty or give you a drink? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" Then the king will say, "I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things that someone overlooked or ignored," another version, probably the one you're more familiar with, says the least of these. "Whenever you did these things to them, that was me. You did it to me." And then he will turn to the goats, the ones on his left, and say, "Get out, you worthless goats. You're good for nothing but the fires of hell." Why? Because I was hungry, and you gave me no meal. I was thirsty. You gave me no drink. I was homeless. You gave me no bed. I was shivering. You gave me no clothes. I was sick and in prison. You never visited. Then those goats are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or homeless or shivering or sick or in prison and didn't help?" He will answer them, "I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you failed to do one of these things to someone who's being overlooked or ignored, that was me. You failed to do it to me." I wonder how many times I've missed caring for the least of these, the overlooked, ignored, forgotten. How many times have you missed it? I guess for that matter, who are the least of these in our society? Are they the poor? The homeless? The jobless? Are they people with disabilities? Are they victims of human trafficking? Addicts? Orphans? Is it the abused? The abandoned? Is it people just released from prison? Is it immigrants? Who are the least of these? The overlooked, the forgotten, and ignored. How many times do we miss the chance to care for someone, and in doing so, fail in our responsibility as a follower of Jesus? Let me show you one more parallel passage, Hebrews 13. "Keep on loving each other as brothers. Do not forget to entertain strangers, For by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those in prison as if you were their fellow prisoners, those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering. Those two passages taken together present a high standard of thought and behavior. So, how are you doing with that? Are you kind and caring to the least of these, to the overlooked, the forgotten, and ignored? Do you treat those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering? Now, before I continue, let me give you a caution. These passages are sometimes used as a weapon by crooks and cons trying to manipulate and prey on God's good people. It's interesting to me when sinners use Bible verses against God's people, when they say things like that, like, you should be giving me money because I might be an angel. That's really not the intent of these words. This is not something to use to get what you want. When you try that, you're not the overlooked, ignored, or forgotten. You are the greedy and the manipulative. One day, Pastor Tyler and I were walking through the hospital parking lot, and a guy stopped us. He said, would you help me? I need money because my dad's in the hospital, and I live a long way away. I don't need much. I just need $10 or $12 so I can eat for the next 4 days. My first thought was, I want to know what restaurant that is. I want to be soft-hearted and open-handed. At the same time, I don't like to get conned, so I asked a few questions. I said, well, where do you live? He said, long way away. I said, like where? He said, well, it's the other side of Gravel Ridge. I said, what room is your dad in? Well, he's not in a room right now. They're moving him. I said, well, what's your dad's name? Because Tyler, we got time. Do you have time, Tyler? He's like, yeah, Dad, I got time. I said, we'll go right back in with you. We'll pray for your dad. He didn't know his dad's name. So he wasn't the overlooked, forgotten, or ignored. He was a guy working the hospital parking lot trying to trick people out of money. Now, it would be foolish to allow him to steal from me. I've had people like that hurl these verses at me when I didn't give them money. That's not the intent. These passages aren't intended for you to judge others. Instead, the words of Jesus in Matthew 25 and the passage in Hebrews 13 gives you a picture of how God will judge you. And the standard of behavior and care that Jesus expects from his followers. Don't judge the person next to you or the person who didn't give you what you want. Instead, judge yourself. What's your reaction to Metro Thanksgiving or Share Your Lunch or, for that matter, Family Christmas? Do you say, well, those people just need to get a job and buy their own food? Do you say, I'm not going to that. That's just for a bunch of do-gooders. Do you look and say, those people don't deserve that kind of blessing? Or are you motivated by the love of Jesus to give and to help and to love and to celebrate needs being met? According to Jesus, your reaction is pivotal. You may be wondering, where's he going with this? Is he about to take an offering, or is he going to make me sign up for something? Well, some of you keep your resources to yourself instead of sharing with the least of these. You probably should give in some offerings for the needy and the hurting. You need to bring some food to share. Some of you need to sign up for ministry. But instead of taking an offering or passing out sign-up sheets, I want to look back at a story where one guy who had everything lived out these instructions long before the words were ever written. I think you'll find some clues how you can apply Jesus' command. David and Jonathan, best friends, made a covenant, an agreement that extended to future generations. The promise was, in the future, even after your death, I'll take care of your family. We pick up the story years later. Jonathan was dead. David was king, the most powerful man in the world. One day, David remembered his promise to Jonathan, and he asked, is there anyone still left at the house of Saul? Saul was Jonathan's grandfather, or father. Is there anyone still left at the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? David remembered the covenant to care for Jonathan's descendants. That's the first key. Remember your responsibility. What is our responsibility? James 1:27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Now, practically, does that mean you're only supposed to minister to widows and orphans? Now, James is painting a picture. In their society, widows and orphans were considered useless. No one had wanted to help them because they could do nothing for you in return. Pure religion is to reach out to those that everyone else has forgotten. Faultless religion cares for the overlooked and the ignored. Pure religion helps those who can't help themselves. It's pure and faultless because there's no benefit in it for you. Pure religion is compassion and faith expressed without any hope of return. You're not trying to gain. You're not trying to get ahead. You're just expressing the love of Jesus. It's not an option, really. It's a responsibility assigned by Jesus to love and care for the overlooked, the forgotten, the ignored, the least of these. It's easy to get busy, isn't it? You're in a hurry to get where you need to go, to buy all your presents, to finish your to-do list. You've got kids to pick up, Facebook statuses to update, emails to answer, work to do, homework to finish. There's so much on your plate, it's easy to miss caring for others. I think that's probably why they are overlooked, forgotten, and ignored. It's not that you're intentionally disobedient to the command of Jesus. It's not that you're intentionally uncaring. You just have a lot to do. Now, there was a servant of Saul's household named Ziba. They called him to appear before David. The king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" "Your servant," he replied. The king asked, "Is there no one still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?" Ziba answered the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He's crippled, both feet." Backing up, 2 Samuel 4 tells the story of how he became crippled. Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. They were losing a battle. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she hurried to leave, he fell and became crippled. His name was Mephibosheth. "Where is he?" the king asked. Ziba answered, "He is at the house of Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lodabar." So King David had him brought from Lodabar. David asked questions. David pursued Mephibosheth. It's important you understand the culture of the day. Handicapped people weren't cared for. They were viewed as flawless, useless, damaged goods who were handicapped either because of their own sin or because of their parents' sin. There's no way that a crippled man would be anywhere near the king. That wasn't proper. That wasn't accepted. Mephibosheth wasn't sitting at David's doorstep. Mephibosheth didn't have a spot on the corner on the way to David's office every day. It took work and effort to find Mephibosheth. That's the second key. Seek out the hurting. Find the ignored, the overlooked, the forgotten. Make the effort. Open your eyes. Look for people everyone else overlooks. Find the people who've been forgotten. They may not come to you. You may have to go to them. Do you remember the movie Field of Dreams? Farmer built a baseball diamond in his cornfield. Now, I've never seen the movie. I know that's a big surprise. But even though I've never seen the movie, I know the iconic line, "If we build it, they will come." That might be true of a baseball field in a cornfield. But that's not true of the church and the hurting. We built it, but that doesn't mean they're coming. They're all around us, but they're probably not coming to church unless we seek them out. Jesus modeled that. He had a way of seeking out people that no one else cared about. Think about Jesus' history. Zacchaeus, the woman at the well, most of his disciples. Jesus sought them out. He loved them. He brought out the potential that was inside them. He didn't see them as they were. He saw them as they could be. Love lives in a seeking, tangible way. They're not going to reach out to us. They're not going to magically appear at our door. We have to reach out to them. Like David, we have to seek them out. The empty seat next to you represents an opportunity to reach the hurting. Let's fill them all. And then when we do, we have to create more empty seats, because our goal is not every service packed. If it is, we waited too long to make a change. We have to always have room so we can bring the overlooked, the forgotten, the ignored, the least of these. We have to have space so we can follow the command of Jesus. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said to Mephibosheth, he said, "Mephibosheth, your servant," he replied. "Don't be afraid," David said. The overlooked, ignored, and forgotten are often afraid. When someone pays attention to them, it's not usually a good thing. Ministering to the least of these isn't easy. It's hard work. They're not always reasonable in their expectations. But you're not always reasonable when you're hurting. Come on. You turn into a whiny baby when you're sick. I do too. Ministry to the least of these can be frustrating and time-consuming because they're hurting. Not everyone who walks through these doors is going to feel comfortable. Many will be scared to let anyone close. Understand that fear. Don't let it stop you from fulfilling your responsibility. David said, "Don't be afraid. I will show you kindness for the sake of your father, Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you'll always eat at my table." David not only sought out Mephibosheth, he showed him great kindness. He didn't lecture Mephibosheth. He didn't say, "You wouldn't be in this mess if your stupid grandfather wouldn't have tried to kill me." David didn't tell Mephibosheth everything he should have done. David didn't go on social media and rant about all the laws Mephibosheth had broken. David just showed kindness. That's the third key. Be kind. I'm afraid that sometimes as Christians, we are guilty of being opinionated and judgmental before we are kind and compassionate. What a challenge it is to be kind even when you think you know all the answers. It's kind of like marriage. Guys, have you ever wanted to solve all your wife's problems at work? You know, she tells you everything she's struggling with, and you respond with a step-by-step instruction. You need to talk to this person. You need to do this. You need to do this. And that usually doesn't go well. She didn't want your how-to guide. What she wanted was for you to listen and be kind. That's the same thing hurting people want. They just want someone to listen and be kind. Anyone can do that. And remember what Jesus said. When you do one of these things, there's someone who's overlooked, ignored, or forgotten. That was me. You did it for me. David showed kindness to Mephibosheth. Whatever his name is. That's a tough name. Wouldn't you hate to be his parents trying to say that name all the time? Mephibosheth bowed down and said, "What is your servant that you'd notice a dead dog like me?" Mephibosheth was doing what many hurting people do. He was desperately searching for affirmation by running himself down. Maybe you know someone like that. They say, "Well, I'm not good at anything. I guess I just blew it again. I can't do anything right. Nobody's nice to me. Nobody likes me. I'm always left out. I'm damaged goods. I'll never have a healthy relationship. There's no hope for me." That's just like Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth said, "Why would you notice a dead dog like me?" And I love what David did. David completely ignored the comment. He didn't even respond. David wasn't going to get bogged down in a pity party. Instead of responding to the dead dog comment, David went about the business of restoration and ministry. Follow David's example. Don't join the pity party. Don't help people be unhappy. Instead, offer help and healing and restoration and kindness. Look what David did. The king summoned Ziba, Saul's servant, said to him, I've given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons, your servants, are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops so that your master's grandson will be provided for. Give him a lot of stuff. Houses and land and possessions. And I wonder if the critics watching said, what a waste. There's no way a cripple knows what to do with that kind of blessing. He's never had anything. He'll just waste it all. We don't know. The Bible doesn't say. If the critics did say that, it didn't stop David. The king had a lot to give, and he did everything imaginable to demonstrate kindness and to facilitate restoration. We have so much to give. We offer hope for the hopeless, help for the downhearted, healing for the wounded, community for the lonely, comfort for the grieving, freedom for the addict. Because of Jesus, we have every answer that people are crying out for. David said, Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah. All the members of Ziba's household were servants of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table, and he was crippled in both feet. This point of the story is huge. To invite Mephibosheth to the table was more than just sharing a meal. Mephibosheth's grandfather, Saul, tried to kill David. Saul was David's worst nightmare. He made his life miserable. David loved and accepted Mephibosheth in spite of his handicap and in spite of what his grandfather had done. David welcomed the crippled grandson of his worst enemy to the royal table. David didn't just give Mephibosheth a handout and send him on his way. David invited him to become one of the family. Mephibosheth was treated the same as a son. What a powerful picture of restoration. It's the fifth key. Treat the overlooked, ignored, or forgotten like family. Give them a place at the table. Spend time with them. Sit next to them. Get to know them. Allow them in your life and treat them as part of the family. Love, hug, affirm. One of my earliest Thanksgiving memories. One year, my family, we had a guest with us at Thanksgiving. Another family in the church had a son who was away from God and wasn't in right relationship with them. He wasn't going to go to their house for Thanksgiving, and we invited him to our house. And I distinctly remember, I can see his face, I remember his name, even though it's been many years. As we reached out to someone who was forgotten, overlooked, ignored, wrong, and he sat at the table like family, and he ate with us, and we loved him. Can you do that? Can you treat the homeless person like one of your family? Can you treat the addict, the alcoholic, with love and compassion? Can you treat a bitter old woman with grace? Can you treat an immigrant with tender, loving, gentle kindness? Jesus said, whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it for me. So, what does that mean for you practically? It might mean giving in an offering. It might mean thinking back and giving in one that you let pass by. You didn't give anything to rescue girls from sexual slavery or to meet needs in our own community. And now you recognize the opportunity you missed when you didn't help them. It was like you were saying no to Jesus. It might mean signing up to work with the homeless on Saturday mornings. or with inner city kids on Thursday nights. Maybe you need to serve families at Christmas Lane. It might mean bringing food every week for Share Your Lunch, even though it's a hassle to have to remember to bring a couple cans of food or a box of cereal. It might mean becoming a foster parent. Maybe you should drive a bus and bring people to church. You say, well, I don't have the right driver's license. We'll help you get it. If you fill a bus and bring people to church, I'll buy you another bus. Say, how many buses will you buy? As many as you fill. We got empty seats. Let's put people in them. It might mean ministering in the prisons or visiting people in nursing homes. But regardless of what it is, it definitely means figuring out what these verses mean for you. We can't avoid this. Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you? Thirsty and give you a drink? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and come to you? The king will say, I'm telling the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things that someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me. Keep on loving each other as brothers. Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those in prison as if you were their fellow prisoners. You were in the cell next to them. Those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering. I challenge you to a lifestyle change. To open your eyes, your hands, and your heart, maybe your wallet, and represent Jesus in a world that's filled with hopelessness and hurt. I don't know everything it means for you. You get to figure that out. Seek the Lord. Read your Bible. Pray. Get serious, because this is a command. Ask God how you can apply His instructions to how you see and treat others. Then do it. Instead of just blindly following the crowd. Ask yourself, what does this verse mean to me?